Dear friends, today is Sunday. We're beginning a new week. A week that is starting off with most of us here, all of you that will watch it now and later, are in quarantine with your families. We're dealing with the situation of a crisis which is changing the way we're living our life on a regular basis. So the thing I want to address today is, how do we deal with celebrations, bar and bat mitzvahs, a bris milah, circumcision, a wedding. My nephew is getting married in New York this week. How it's going to happen, unfortunately, most of the family is not going to be there. We hope it will happen, and we'll talk about it soon, at least with his immediate family and his kala's, his bride's immediate family. Today, my grandson, Tzvi Minsky, lives in Connecticut, is having his upshern, his 3-year-old birthday, when the custom is we make a celebration to cut the hair for the first time, inaugurate them into formal Jewish education by leaving payas, but we cannot be there as was planned. So what happens with that celebration? How do we deal with these issues? Now, even though many things in our lives are disrupted, we cannot disrupt events that are happening in our life, celebrations that are going on in our life that mark special moments in our life. Some of them automatic, some of them are planned. A bar and bat mitzvah, an upsharon, these are connected to time. When you become 12, 13, 3-year-old, as a boy, a wedding is based on a planned date that was supposed to happen, with a lot of preparations, a lot of emotional investment from the bride and the groom, the chatan and kala, and the family all around them. What happens to a bris milah, circumcision? Someone is born. No one chooses the time they are born. This is when they're born, and on the 8th day, you have to have a circumcision. So how do we deal with that? And I think the right way to look at it is that even though life is disrupted, life is not finished. And we have to continue on living our life, especially with the areas of spiritual and Judaism, as before. Obviously, we know there's no minions. Shul had to stop, pikuach nefesh, to save another life. We have tremendous sacrifice for it, and ready to give up our minions, to care and love for another fellow person, that they should not contract this terrible disease that could turn disastrous for many people. And not only old people, we're finding a lot of young people in their 30s and 40s that are also getting very serious. So we have to obviously stop certain things. But on the other hand, whatever we can do, we're supposed to continue to do. And celebrations have to continue in some form. So when a boy becomes 13 or a girl becomes 12, whether there's a party or not even during this crisis, at all times. Many times parents come to me and they say, we have a bar mitzvah, but it's much more convenient for us to make the party 6 months later. And I tell them, you can make the party when you want, but he's becoming 13. The day he becomes 13, that's when he becomes a young adult. That's when, according to, in God's eyes, he becomes an adult. That's when the celebration begins. That's when you should make some kind of a celebration. So today as well, you cannot have a minyan. But think creatively, what can you do to your child who becomes 13? Put him on the tefillin. Maybe go on to Zoom or some other form like Facebook and let other people be able to join in as he reads the Shema for the first time. And virtually they'll all say Mazel Tov. We are holding close as a community, even during these trying times. And perhaps this is a time when we're coming even closer together. So mark the celebration of the bar or bat mitzvah in that form. And upsharon, like my daughter and son-in-law did, we did a virtual upsharon. They cut his hair while we joined in virtually. But what about a wedding? What about a wedding or a bris, when you have to have physically, you have to have people there? For a wedding, you need 10 people. And besides immediate family, you need 10 men, and you need 2 people who are not related to the family to act as witnesses. So to make a celebration, it's obvious this is something that could be pushed off to a later time, a party, etc. And let's hope it happens much quicker than we imagine. And I'm very optimistic it will happen quicker than people are predicting. But a wedding itself has to be done. And whether you use the norms, obviously, that are told to us, everyone is a few meters apart, but you have 10 people there, the Chatan and Kala, the bride and groom under the chuppah, 2 people witnessing, they don't have to be standing right there so close, they can have their distance as well. But a wedding should really not be pushed off unless there's absolutely no way to make it happen. For instance, the bride and the groom are in 2 different cities and they cannot travel. But otherwise, you should definitely talk to your rabbi. I'm not giving a halachic position, but try and always possible to make it happen. Because every mitzvah, every good deed, every Jewish home built brings more light to the world and helps win over this current experience of midas hadin, of God's judgment that is going on. Now, we believe always it's good, and ultimately it will be for the good that we will all see. But still, now it's a tough time. It's a time of judgment. But yet, trying to make a wedding, a bris, unless there is immediate danger, obviously you have to make sure you have a moel who has been tested, does not have corona, people keeping their distance, but definitely a bris should try in all possibilities to make it happen in the right time. Gathering the 10 people, however it will happen, following the rules, but doing it unless, and you should definitely ask your local rabbi with all your circumstances, because it's not one size fits all. So I think it's important for us to remember, just like we all celebrated Shabbat, and we'll celebrate next Shabbat if we still have to be in quarantine, and we're praying 3 times a day, and we'll talk more about prayer during one of the sessions this week. And we're continuing to do all the things that we are supposed to do. And women, even continuing going to the mikveh with obviously all the precautions to keep up family life. This is a time when we need to add in celebrations. I just heard last night of an engagement where he proposed to his bride, future bride, virtually. They met each other, but then they were separate, and they knew it was for each other. They said, why push it off? And they proposed virtually, and they announced their engagement virtually. Wow, that's incredible. You know, in Crown Heights, New York, there was a wedding last week. They had a small group of people, just immediate family. But then the bride and groom rode through the streets of Crown Heights in a convertible. And as they rode through the streets of Crown Heights, people came onto their porches. Everyone is far away from each other. And they had a car leading which had music. And everyone came out to rejoice with the bride and groom from their porch, clapping and dancing. Wow, this is community coming together. Imagine a bride and groom, how they're going to remember that night. They didn't have the 400 or 500 people in the one room, but a whole community danced with them and rejoiced with them. So this is a time when we have to not shelve all happy and celebratory things, but try in our best to make it happen, obviously within the confines of what we're able to do. And may Hashem help that through being this joyous, He will be forced to allow us to come together with many, many, many together in a room together, healthily and safely and well, to continue to rejoice with each other in all of our simchas and celebrations. May it happen quickly in our days. Signing off for now. See you tomorrow, 12 p.m.